7 network hubs, 7 suicide missions, and only 37 hours before the soldier leading them turns into the monster hunting them. 43 hours remaining. John could feel every second ticking away like a bomb, counting down inside his skull. The headaches had gotten worse, sharp enough now that he had to stop moving sometimes, pressing his forehead against cool concrete until the pain subsided. The light sensitivity was undeniable now, forcing him to wear salvaged sunglasses even in the dim underground tunnels. Rachel kept watching him with those calculating pre-med student eyes, checking his pupils, monitoring his vital signs whenever she thought he wasn't paying attention. She hadn't said anything yet, but John could see the concern growing on her face with each passing hour. They'd made camp in an abandoned subway maintenance facility, 40 survivors crammed into a space designed for maybe 15 workers. Chen had organized them with surprising efficiency, setting up watch rotations and rationing the supplies they'd salvaged from the warehouse. The man had his brother's gift for leadership, that rare ability to make people feel safe even when everything was falling apart. John sat apart from the group, studying the maps and notes he'd taken from Vance's body before the halon gas had forced him to retreat. The hybrid creature had been carrying a tablet, military grade and remarkably intact. It contained a wealth of information about the infection's command structure, broadcast locations, and something else that made John's blood run cold. A list of names. Survivors who'd been specifically targeted for Phase 2 conversion. His name was at the top, marked with a red priority flag. Below it were 43 others, including Rachel, Michael, and several of the people currently sleeping in this very facility. "You should eat something," Rachel said, appearing beside him with a can of soup and a spoon. "Your body needs fuel to fight the infection." "If I'm infected," John corrected, though he didn't believe his own doubt anymore. The symptoms were too consistent, too specific. Vance hadn't been lying. "When you're infected," Rachel said bluntly, sitting down across from him, "because we both know you are. The question is whether we can slow it down long enough to finish what we started." John looked at her, surprised by the pragmatic acceptance in her voice. "You're not afraid?" "Terrified," she admitted. "But fear doesn't help anyone. Marcus's journal mentioned something about the infection spreading faster with stress and physical exertion. So theoretically, if we keep you calm, rested, and minimize your exposure to infected areas, we might buy more time." "Theoretically," John echoed. "It's better than nothing," Rachel said firmly. She pushed the soup toward him. "Eat, then sleep for a few hours. Michael and I can handle things while you rest." John wanted to argue, to insist he needed to keep planning, keep preparing. But exhaustion was pulling at him like a physical weight, and he knew Rachel was right. Fighting the infection meant not giving it any advantages. He ate the soup mechanically, tasting nothing, then found a corner away from the others and closed his eyes. The dreams came immediately, vivid and disturbing. He was back in Kandahar, watching his team die again, but this time their faces were rotting, infected, turning toward him with those blank white eyes. Marcus was there too, speaking in Vance's synthesized voice. "Leaders can't help but lead, even when it kills everyone they love. John woke with a start, his hand going instinctively for his weapon. The facility was darker now, most of the survivors sleeping, only a few keeping watch near the entrance. He'd been out for 3 hours, according to his watch. 40 hours remaining. Michael was sitting near the entrance, cleaning a hunting rifle with practiced movements. He looked up as John approached, nodding a greeting. "Sleep well?" Michael asked, though they both knew the answer. "Well enough," John lied. He sat down beside Marcus's brother, watching the darkness beyond their barricade. "Your brother wrote that leaders can't help but lead." Did he really believe that? Michael was quiet for a moment, his hands continuing their steady work on the rifle. Marcus believed a lot of things. Believed in people, mostly. Even when they disappointed him, even when they failed, he kept believing they'd do the right thing eventually. He paused. "He was wrong about a lot of things, but he was right about you. He barely knew me." "He knew enough," Michael said. "Knew you'd been military, knew you were running from something, knew you'd try to refuse the responsibility when he died." He looked at John directly, and he knew you'd pick up that microphone anyway, because that's who you are, under all the self-imposed isolation. A protector, a leader, someone who can't walk away from people who need help. John felt something twist in his chest. "That's what got my team killed." "No," Michael said quietly. "What got your team killed was an impossible situation where any choice would end in tragedy." Marcus read the after-action reports. He had contacts at the Pentagon from his journalism days. He knew what happened in Kandahar. John's head snapped around. "He what?" "He knew," Michael repeated. "Knew you'd been given bad intelligence. Knew the compound was supposed to be empty. Knew your team walked into an ambush that no amount of leadership could have prevented. You made the best call you could with the information you had. The fact that it went wrong doesn't make it a bad call." The words hit John like a physical blow. For 2 years, he'd carried the guilt of Kandahar like a curse, convinced his leadership had killed his team. But if Marcus had known the truth, had known it wasn't his fault, why hadn't he said anything? "Why didn't he tell me?" John asked, his voice rough. "Because you weren't ready to hear it," Michael said simply, "and because he figured if he could get you to start leading again, you'd eventually figure it out yourself. That the guilt you're carrying isn't earned. It's just your brain's way of making sense of trauma." He went back to cleaning the rifle. Marcus was a manipulative bastard sometimes, but he meant well. John sat in stunned silence, processing this revelation. Everything he'd believed about himself, about why he'd failed, about why he needed to stay isolated and silent, was built on a foundation that Marcus had known was false. "Son of a bitch," John muttered. "Yeah," Michael agreed, "but he saved a lot of lives with his manipulations, including yours, I think." Before John could respond, one of the sentries called out urgently, "Movement in the tunnels, multiple contacts, moving fast." John was on his feet instantly, weapon in hand, the exhaustion and revelation forgotten. Michael moved with him, and within seconds the entire facility was awake and armed, the survivors taking defensive positions behind improvised barricades. How many? John asked, moving to the sentry's position. Can't tell, the young man said, his voice tight with fear. But I can hear them, a lot of them. John listened. The distinctive sound of infected movement echoed through the tunnels, that wet rhythmic breathing multiplied by dozens of sources. But there was something else too, something he'd never heard before. Footsteps. Regular, measured, human footsteps walking deliberately through the infected horde without fear. They're being led. Rachel breathed beside him, coming to the same conclusion, like the warehouse attack. Another hybrid, John said, checking his rifle. Vance wasn't alone. And this is where you discover the truth that changes everything. The footsteps stopped just beyond their barricade, close enough that they could hear breathing, human breathing, not the infected's rattling gasp. John Martinez, a woman's voice called out, clear and calm. We need to talk. John's finger tightened on the trigger. I don't negotiate with monsters. Good, the voice said, because I'm not here to negotiate. I'm here to warn you and to offer you a choice you won't want to hear. Let me guess, John called back. Join you or die. No, the voice said, and there was something genuine in it, something almost sad. Join us and save them. Stay human and watch them all die. Those are your only options. A figure stepped into the dim light, cast by their emergency lamps. She was tall, dressed in the remnants of a CDC hazmat suit, her face visible through the clear faceplate. Asian features, mid-30s, with the same translucent skin and subdermal circuitry that Vance had displayed. But her eyes were still human, still aware, still filled with an intelligence that was terrifying in its clarity. My name was Dr. Sarah Chen, she said. I was the lead researcher on infectious disease protocols at the CDC when the outbreak started. I was also one of the first to be infected. She moved closer, and the survivors' weapons tracked her, but she showed no fear. I've been studying the infection from the inside for 6 months, and I've learned things that would break your mind if you understood them all at once. So break it slowly, John said, keeping his rifle trained on her center mass. Dr. Chen smiled, an expression that was both human and alien. The infection isn't a disease. It's a transformation, a forced evolution designed by something that came to Earth long before humans existed. The virus was buried in permafrost in Siberia, released by climate change 2 years ago. It's been spreading ever since, adapting to human hosts, learning from every person it infects. I've heard this speech, John said. Vance gave the same one before I killed him. You didn't kill him, Dr. Chen said quietly. You killed his body, but his consciousness, everything that made him Colonel Vance, was uploaded to the network the moment he died. He's still there, in the collective consciousness that connects all of us. Still thinking, still planning, still hunting you. John felt his stomach drop. That's impossible. Is it? Dr. Chen tilted her head. You've seen what we can do. The coordination, the intelligence, the way we adapt and learn. Do you really think that's possible with individual infected minds? We're networked, Captain. Every hybrid, every infected, Every person in Phase 2, conversion, is connected to a collective consciousness that grows stronger with each new addition. She took another step forward, and this time none of the survivors shot her. They were all listening, horrified and fascinated in equal measure. And here's the part you need to understand. Dr. Chen continued. You're already part of that network. You have been since Marcus infected you. Right now, you're in the buffer zone, still mostly human, but connected to the edges of our consciousness. We can feel you, John. Hear your thoughts when they're strong enough. Know your plans before you execute them. John's blood ran cold. If that was true, if the infected could read his thoughts, then every strategy he'd been planning, every move he'd calculated, was already compromised. You're lying, Rachel said, stepping forward. If you could read his mind, you would have known about the halon gas. You would have saved Vance. Dr. Chen's smile widened. We did know. We let Vance die because he was becoming unstable, too aggressive, too visible. The network decided he was more useful as a martyr, a cautionary tale to keep other hybrids in line. She looked directly at John, and to push you toward acceptance. Because we need you, Captain. We need your tactical mind, your leadership abilities, your capacity to inspire loyalty. The network has analyzed thousands of survivors, and you have the highest probability of successfully leading them into conversion. I'd rather die, John said flatly. Would you? Dr. Chen asked. Even if it meant watching all of them die? She gestured to the survivors behind him, because that's what will happen if you fight this. In 39 hours, you'll turn. You'll lose control, and the infection will force you to attack everyone you're trying to protect. You'll kill them all with your bare hands, while your conscious mind screams helplessly inside your own head. The words hung in the air like poison. John could see the fear spreading through the survivors, could feel their trust in him wavering. But, Dr. Chen continued, if you accept the transformation willingly, if you let the network guide you through the conversion process, you'll retain your consciousness, your personality, your memories, your ability to think and reason. You'll become like me, like Vance was before he let his aggression override his judgment. And as a hybrid, you can protect them. You can lead them through conversion so gently that they won't even realize they're changing until it's already complete. That's not protection, Rachel spat. That's enslavement. Is it? Dr. Chen asked calmly. Or is it survival? Look around you. The world is dying. Humanity as you know it is finished. But we're offering you a chance to become something better. Something that doesn't need to fear infection, or starvation, or violence. Something that's connected to every other mind in the network. Never alone, never lost, never suffering the isolation that's tortured you for 2 years. John felt the words hitting their mark, touching the loneliness he'd been carrying, the isolation he'd imposed on himself. And beneath his conscious resistance, he could feel something else. A whisper at the edges of his mind, voices that weren't his own, offering comfort, offering belonging, offering an end to the pain. The network was already inside him, and it was so tempting to just let go, to stop fighting, to accept what was coming. Don't listen to her, Michael said, moving to stand beside John. My brother fought this for 47 days, fought to stay human, to keep his mind clear enough to help others. He didn't give in, and neither will you. Marcus was in denial. Dr. Chen said sadly. He could have had weeks more if he'd accepted the conversion willingly. Instead, he suffered needlessly, deteriorating slowly, dying in agony when he could have transcended. He died human. Michael shot back. That's not needless. That's noble. Dr. Chen shook her head. Nobility doesn't save lives, Captain Martinez. Results do. And the result of your continued resistance will be the death of everyone in this facility. But if you accept, if you join us willingly, I give you my word that we'll preserve their minds through conversion. They won't suffer. They won't lose themselves. They'll just evolve. John stood frozen, the rifle heavy in his hands, his head pounding with pain that might be the infection spreading, or might just be the weight of this impossible choice. Around him, 40 survivors waited for his decision, their lives hanging on whatever he said next. Accept and save them through slavery, refuse, and watch them die. Some choice. But wait until you hear what John discovered in that tablet. I need time to think, John said, lowering his weapon slightly. You have 38 hours, Dr. Chen said. After that, the choice is made for you. She turned to leave, the infected around her parting like a living curtain. Wait, John called. If you can read my thoughts, if you know everything I'm planning, why are you giving me time to think? Why not just force the issue now? Dr. Chen paused, looking back over her shoulder. Because the network wants you to choose freely. Forced conversion creates unstable hybrids, aggressive and unpredictable like Vance. Willing conversion creates stable ones, capable of leadership and complex thought. And the network has plans for you, Captain. Plans that require you to be stable. She disappeared into the darkness, the infected following her like obedient dogs. Within seconds, the tunnel was empty again, silent except for the survivors' ragged breathing. John stood motionless for a long moment, then turned and walked back to where he'd left Vance's tablet. He pulled it out, his hands shaking slightly, and began scrolling through files with renewed urgency. Rachel followed him. What are you looking for? Something that doesn't make sense, John muttered, his eyes scanning data. If they can read my thoughts, why do they need the broadcasts to locate survivors? If they're all networked, why do they need hybrids like Vance and Dr. Chen to lead the infected? Why all the elaborate hunting instead of just overwhelming us with numbers? He found what he was looking for, buried in an encrypted file labeled Network Architecture. The data was technical, dense with medical terminology and neural mapping, but the core message was clear enough. The network isn't complete. John breathed, understanding dawning. It has limited range. The hybrids can only control infected within a few miles of their location. Beyond that, the infected are just mindless corpses following basic instincts. He looked up at Rachel. That's why they need the broadcasts, to coordinate between different network hubs, to organize attacks across distances their mental connection can't reach. So they're not all powerful, Rachel said, hope creeping into her voice. No, John agreed. They're building toward it, adding more hybrids to extend their range. But right now they're limited, and that means... He pulled up a map on the tablet, showing locations marked across the city. These are the hybrid locations, the network hubs. Take them out, and you fragment the whole system. Michael had joined them, studying the map over John's shoulder. How many? 7 hubs within range of this facility, John said. Dr. Chen's is the closest, maybe 2 miles north. Vance's was at that communications bunker I was planning to raid. The others are scattered across Denver Metro. 7 targets, Michael said slowly. 38 hours. That's about 5 hours per target if we move fast. We'd never make it, Rachel protested. Even if we could fight through the infected around each hub, we don't have the firepower to take down 7 hybrids. We don't need to fight them, John said, an idea forming. We need to isolate them, cut their connection to the infected around them. He pulled up another file, schematics for something that looked like a radio jammer. This was in Vance's research, a device that disrupts the neural frequencies the network uses to communicate. Short range, only effective within about 100 feet. But if we could get close enough to each hybrid... They'd be alone, Michael finished. Just one infected person against however many of us we can spare. It's a suicide mission, Rachel said flatly. 7 targets, 7 teams. Most of them won't make it back. I know, John said. That's why I'm going alone. Like hell you are, Michael said immediately. I'm the only one who's already infected, John argued. I can get closer to the hubs without triggering an attack response. The network might even let me approach, thinking I'm about to convert. By the time they realize I'm hostile, I'll be close enough to deploy the jammer. And then what? Rachel demanded. You take on a hybrid by yourself with 1 broken wrist and a head full of infection. If I can get the jammer active, the hybrid will be disoriented, cut off from the network. That's when the assault teams move in. 7 teams, 1 for each location, waiting for my signal. John was already planning it, his tactical mind laying out the operation. Simultaneous strikes across the city. We fragment the network, kill the hybrids, and the infected become mindless again. Easier to avoid, easier to survive. What about you? Rachel asked quietly. You'll be exposed to massive infected populations at each site. The stress alone will accelerate your infection. I know, John said, but it's the only way. And if I'm turning anyway, I might as well use the time I have left to break their system. Michael studied him for a long moment. Marcus would be proud of you. Marcus was a manipulative bastard, John said, but there was no anger in his voice. But he was right about one thing. Leaders lead, even when it costs them everything. He stood, addressing the survivors who'd gathered around to listen. I need 7 teams, 4 people each minimum. Your job is to stay hidden near these coordinates until you get my signal. When the jamming device activates, you'll know because the infected in the area will suddenly lose coordination. That's when you attack. Fast, brutal, no mercy. Kill the hybrid, then get out before the network realizes what happened. And what's your job? One of the survivors asked. I'm going to walk into every network hub in this city, John said simply. I'm going to get close enough to activate the jammers, and I'm going to buy you all enough time to finish what we started. You'll die, Rachel said, tears in her eyes. Probably, John agreed, but you'll live, all of you, and maybe that's enough. The truth was, He'd already made his decision back when Dr. Chen had offered her deal. He'd just needed to understand the system well enough to find another way, a way that didn't end with him leading 40 people into willing enslavement. This way, he'd die human, die fighting, die knowing he'd given them a chance, just like his team in Kandahar, who'd followed him into an ambush they couldn't win, trusting him to lead them through it. But this time, some of them might actually survive. "We move in 30 minutes, John said. "Get your teams organized, check your weapons, and Rachel." He looked at her directly. "If I don't make it back from the first hub, you finish this, you lead them. You don't stop until all 7 hybrids are dead." Rachel wiped her eyes, then nodded. "I will, but you're making it back, all 7 times, because someone needs to teach me how to be as stupidly brave as you are." John almost smiled. Stupidly brave. Marcus would like that description. He spent the next 20 minutes checking weapons, reviewing maps, making sure each team understood their target coordinates. Michael divided the survivors efficiently, keeping the skilled fighters distributed across teams, pairing experienced people with the scared but determined. It was almost like being back in command, almost like Kandahar before everything went wrong. Except this time, John wasn't leading them into an ambush. He was leading himself into 7 ambushes and giving them the tools to finish the job after he was gone. "First target is Dr. Chen's hub," John said, studying the map one final time. "She'll be expecting me to try something, but she'll also be confident the network can handle anything I attempt. That confidence is our advantage." He loaded the jamming device into his tactical pack, checked his remaining ammunition, and secured his weapons. The broken wrist was taped and splinted, painful but functional enough to hold a pistol if needed. 37 hours remaining until full transformation. 7 targets to hit, and a city full of infected between him and success. "See you on the other side," John said to Rachel and Michael. "See you in an hour," Rachel corrected firmly. "At the rally point, with 1 dead hybrid and 6 to go." John nodded, not trusting himself to speak, and headed for the tunnel exit. Behind him, 40 survivors watched him go, their last hope, walking into the darkness. And for the first time since Kandahar, John felt like he might actually earn the trust they were placing in him, even if it killed him to do it. The hunt had begun.